Okay, so my name is Sudhan Marathe, and I have lived in the US since September 4th, 1992.
My name is Surabhi Marathe, and I have lived in the US for 23 years.
I came to the US initially because I wanted to pursue my graduate studies.
I initially came here with my husband, who had a job here. And it wasn't like I was planning on staying here permanently. We just came here and made life here.
So the differences between the social atmosphere in India versus US is A, in the US, there is just nobody on the streets. While in India, everybody's on the streets. At least that's what it feels like. Um, Plus, it's more local. So when you walk down the street, you know your neighbor knows you, everybody knows you. You go to the grocery store, the guy at the grocery store knows you. Maybe your father shop there, maybe your grandfather shop there. So there's a sense of community, which I think it takes time to develop here because you're a transplant.
Now, this is going to sound really weird, but what I enjoyed the most when I came here was access to a free public library. I mean, it's not to say that India doesn't have free public libraries, but you have to go quite a ways and you have to take out a card and you can only take home like between two and four, depending on which library it is, books home. And between the small number of books and the difficulty of going to places, for a person like me, it was a hassle. When I came here, I lived maybe a 5-minute walking distance from a library. And the first time I asked the person what was the limit of books I could take, they gave me a really funny look and said 50. And I was like, is that 50 for a year? And they started laughing and said, no, 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 that's 50 at a time. And I'm a big reader. I was in that library partly because I loved those books and partly because that was a really hot summer and the library was the only place that had AC. To the point where the librarian started telling me I needed a job because they told me I had read some 700 books that year.
How did I combat the loneliness? It was tough. I just put it in the back of my mind and I did not think about it. I was very poor back then, and I could afford one phone call per month to my family where they didn't even have a phone in their house. So I would wait for the entire month, counting down the days till I got my 30 minutes of phone call. And then when I got to talk to my family, the first 5 minutes were my mom just crying because she was missing me. Um, and then, everybody would line up to talk to me, like not just my family, but my neighbors, my friends. So that 30-minute phone call every month lasted me for a few weeks.
Being here without your family, when you come here and you're young and you don't have your parents or your siblings or your friend, and you have a husband, but it's just the two of you making a life, it's just the best way to put it, it's just more freeing. You can choose to live the life you want, make the priorities that you like, buy the stuff you want, make dinner, not make dinner, read books 24 hours a day if you wanted to. And that was just a revelation. It was fun.
It kind of forces you to understand who you are. It forces you into situations where you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. And the biggest change I think I saw in myself was I understood myself much better.
When I came here, finding Indian food meant driving 30 miles to get groceries. And you couldn't get everything that you wanted. So I came here, and certain vegetables that I loved, I did not eat for 2 years until I went back to India. Now that's not an issue. Those things are being cultivated in Florida and North Carolina, and I can just go to my local Indian store, which is 3 miles away, and buy whatever I want and cook whatever I want. On the other hand, I don't know whether it was young or naive. I never felt othered in the US when I came here 23 years ago. There were very few Indians, and other than a few stray incidents, I never felt like I was out of place. I felt welcome. People were very nice. In recent years, what with the political climate and all, it just makes me feel like I'm an immigrant, which is very weird because I've spent almost as much time in this country as I spent in India, and more of my, you know, I I came here just after my 24th birthday, and the first 6 years I don't really remember. So more of my memories are made in the U.S. I feel more American now than I certainly did 23 years ago, but I never felt like an other person then, which I do feel like now sometimes, more times than I would like to, at the very least.
So like in 1992 when I came, um, people did not know anything about India other than the snake charmers and the burning of the bodies on the Ganges pier. Now you have bunch of Indian Americans like me who are CEOs of big companies like Google and whatnot. So from that perspective, coming from India, I see that there is a assimilation and welcoming of people. So from that perspective, India, US has become better, but in many ways it hasn't really changed. So the same debates that we have seen, if you go back and look at the reels from 1960s or so on, it's still the same thing. So there is still a progress that needs to be made, but I'm always hopeful. I probably, because I'm an immigrant, I'm the biggest cheerleader for United States.
The first time I realized I was going to be an American was when I came back from India and realized I was home. And I remember thinking, if you think this is home, you should probably become a citizen now.
At this point, I have lived here more number of years than in India. Um, so I don't think I'm going to go back.
I think I will continue living in the US. It's my home. I've been a citizen for over a decade. I've spent my entire adult life here. I have worked here, had children here, built up a social. I love the country. That's not to say that I may not go back to India to visit more times than I've been able to do, what with jobs and family and responsibilities once I grow older and have lesser responsibilities. But I don't see myself leaving the US. At least I don't want to.